So, those who are tuning in to see this little video, what I'm going to be showing you is how I turn any sort of sketch into a final product for the web. And this also includes things like my comic, vendettacomic.com for those interested, and how the entire process, and hopefully this narration will give you at least some insight into what the hell I do. So the first thing I do, if I'm using a digital sketch like this sketch was made in Alias Sketchbook Pro, and the hardware that I use to make this is a Toshiba Satellite Pro, I believe it's called. Basically, it's a tablet laptop that basically allows you to draw on the screen, and because of that fact, you'll see things like having the mouse jump around for when I move the pen away from the screen, and then it'll jump to another point. So just be prepared for random jumpings about. So first thing is the sketch. This would be the actual size of the image is right here. Now, first thing I do is increase the resolution to 300 dpi, or pixels per inch. That makes everything very big. So now this is 25%, which is generally the size I export to the web at. So now we shall start to here. Oh, and the main tools that I use is the magnifying glass, which is right here, the pencil tool, which is under the same menu as the brush tool, and the paint bucket tool. Now go down to your layers and create a new layer. Now we have a completely blank layer, and when I do the comic, I usually keep it at a diameter of 5 pixels, and this gives you or in my opinion, the greatest amount of leeway in terms of going from thick to thin. But since I'm running so much on my computer right now, it is lagging all to hell. So, gonna have to just fight through that. And usually with the comic, I'm working at a lot smaller space, meaning the frames will take up more of the area than the entire image does for this. So the detail or the line art will be a little more fine by comparison of the comic. So let's get to it. And what you'll definitely notice is the fact that since I am able to go thick to thin, mice can't do that, at least as far as I'm aware. This is the biggest advantage of having a tablet for your art input source. For those of you who are now wanting to buy this thing, it is $1,600 at least when I bought it. I've seen advertisements on TV for them for about $1,000. It's a Dell, so I don't know if you're really willing to risk getting a Dell for this. Like I said before, this is a Toshiba. It's been pretty good to me. You'll also notice the fact that I don't use anti-alias lines. meaning that, oops, all my lines are jaggedy. It's also one of the reasons why I work at 300 dpi and I export things at 25%. Because when you look at it from 25%, you don't really notice the jaggedy lines. There are almost an infinite amount of ways to do art in Photoshop. This is the way I've found to be the most effective for what I do. Now this sketch is roughly about a year old, so it's weird going back. Way too high, eyebrow. Weird to go back into your archive of random doodles and then pulling something out to try to do art for. The eyes aren't right, but whatever. One of the great advantages of working in the digital medium, you can make things that don't work. And probably shouldn't be admitting this, but it happens a lot in Vendetta. Something goes wrong and I make it work. So now we take a little quick preview of the head at 25%. Looks fairly decent. Line art itself has never been my speciality. My speciality has always been the shading and the coloring. Now, a lot of people are always kind of asking me what do I do to get Photoshop to do what I wanted to do. And the answer is actually almost embarrassing. I have a very basic knowledge of Photoshop. I don't know anything really special. I just messed around with it for now about 4 years. Now my computer's really saying, ow, 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 need RAM. But yeah, so I've been messing around with Photoshop for about 4 years now, and yeah, everything you see me do is just stuff I've picked up along the way. One thing they should, for anyone who is more interested in the drawing aspect of art as opposed to just the coloring, or if you're into webcomics, the writing aspect. If you're drawing it, you should always be wary of making things, if you make things too detailed. Because if you make things too detailed, the entire makes it hard for the eye to focus on any one aspect of the picture, because if everything's so detailed, you don't know what to look at. So now some people can get away with it because they make everything look nice, but for something like my comic, where the characters and what they're doing is generally more important than anything else, I leave the background pretty basic, and it's actually it does hurt my comic to some extent, but overall, if I didn't do it, people would get more lost than they already are. But I'm always trying to improve my art, and a good bit of advice is if if you are an artist, don't ever be satisfied with your work. Because as soon as you become satisfied, your art will no longer get better. And I know that kind of sounds kind of stupid, but it's really true. I know many artists who kind of are just stop trying to improve, and the quality of their work stayed the same. So always try new things. Don't ever limit yourself to one manner of drawing. You also find it's also one of the reasons why in Vendetta every chapter is done differently. All the characters still are still identifiable, and the general look is the same, but how I do each chapter is different. For example, the very first chapter, I did the line art over the sketch work, the line art, the framing, like everything by hand, and it definitely took back from the final product because I don't have a very steady hand, which is one of the reasons why I like being able to zoom in and work on things. And once you mess up on your original, it's messed up, and it's really hard to fix, especially if you, or especially at the time I didn't know what I was doing in Photoshop. So yeah, don't mess up your originals unless you're really confident in your abilities and really feel that you're able to take a risk of working on an original and not destroying it like I did. So yeah, then for chapter 2, I would do the line art by hand, scan it, then I would go into Photoshop and I would add the line arts directly with the mouse. And it was before I discovered the wonders of using an alias tool to do the line art. And what I would have to do is I would do put the line art in with the mouse using a shift click method, meaning you click. So let's say I did that, and then you go somewhere else and you hit shift and you click again, or you hold shift while you click again, and it would draw a straight line in between the two. It's really effective if you want to work with completely straight lines, which I did in chapter 7. And yeah, so that was the method I did everything for in chapter 7, except I used alias lines, which really saved me. But so yeah, chapter 2 took me forever to do just because of the simple fact I wasn't using alias lines. And it does become apparent to me that not everybody knows what anti-alias looks like, so I shall demonstrate that real quick. Okay, so here we have a alias line, or dot, and then we have here an alias dot. Now if you notice, that one has all the jaggedy edges, this one has a lot of soft edges. So the main disadvantage is with this, let me just choose a color, let's go with the red. See how there's a little gap right there? That's the real disadvantage of using anti-alias lines. Now if you want to use aliased, makes it clean, there's no white at all. I know there are ways to get around having that in there, but you know, I only have a basic knowledge of Photoshop, so whatever. So one thing you can always do, if you're kind of wondering how your liner is appearing on its own, you can hide your base layer or whatever layer your sketch is on. Or if you just want to look at your sketch real quick, just gotta hide the two. Now what I do, once I'm finished, I will add a layer of white underneath everything. Alright, up here we have the alt, with the paint bucket. If you choose contiguous and use all layers, and let's say I did it like right here, then only this area right here fills with white, because this is the only area that didn't have the sketch or something in the way for it to get to all the other areas. Now if I had done, let me first clear that. Oh, and a little nifty trick is, instead of having to do Control Z or anything like that, you can go into your little history right here and like go back as far as you like allowed under your. If you go under the I believe it's preferences, you go in general, since I don't know the exact one. You go to history states. Now I put 999, and I really shouldn't do that, mainly because it really slows down the computer later on. But since I do like a lot of fine detail work, and I've done at some points where I like really messed up, and I had to take off a hell of a lot of what I've done to get back to what I originally did. It really can save you. So if you can put up with your computer really lagging out later on, it can, yeah, save your life. You know, as much as your life needs to be saved with something like this. Alright, so back to the filling in a gap. Now if I had deselected contiguous, everywhere that's like white will fill in with white, or at least of what's visible. So take that off. Basically this whole area couldn't get filled because the sketch of the hair blocked off all the white pixels. So there's a little bit in there, but not enough to really make it make it work at all. So what I want to do is I want to have contiguous and all layers deselected, so when I fill, everything gets filled. This is also really good once you have a layer underneath your line art filled with complete white or any other color that you prefer to use, since some people like using blues or greens, so to really get a good gauge of if there's any holes, which will come later. But since I'm not done with the line art, I want to hide that layer, come back over here, zoom back in, come to my really poorly drawn hand, change it back to black. And you'll notice I'm not using any keyboard shortcuts, mainly because since I'm using a tablet, I don't have access to the keyboard. So I have to do everything by hand. So that's the biggest slowing down issue of having a tablet. There is the option of using this little guy right down here, which is my on-screen keyboard, but the problem is it can get really slow. So in the original doodle, the hand wasn't in here, so I had to throw it in about, I don't know, 5 minutes before I started this video, just so there's a hand instead of just it originally ended off like at the wrist. So this is a pretty badly drawn hand. Whatever. I'm more doing this for the shading so people understand what the hell I do. It usually goes a lot faster, but my laptop is slowing down because I have to power the recording program, the audio program, and Photoshop, which Photoshop itself usually brings my computer to its knees. This hand was here originally, but it still looks like crap. In one of these days, I'll actually do one of these to show you how I sketch something, but the problem is I gotta know what to sketch first. Unlike a lot of people, or some artists, I can't just really sit down and draw something brand new. I can draw my characters from Vendetta, no problem. I mean, I've been doing it, drawing them for over 4 years now, so it's not like it's a big issue. But there's no really point in that because I've already done it many times. I want to do something new, or at least something new if I'm doing a tutorial like this. Yeah, and you'd be amazed what adding a couple little details will do to the overall value of the entire pick. Alright, we are pretty much done with the line art. So there's that. That's good enough for me. Unhide the background, and now get to coloring, which is used to be my favorite part, but it's more of a pain in the ass since everything is going slow. So I have my little repertoire of colors I use for Vendetta, starting with a Vendetta red color, which is a very specific red. Then we have Mike's hair, then we have the skin, Mike's eye, Brent's hair, Brent's skin, Brent's eye, Lewis's hair, Lewis's skin, since no eye color since he's just black and white eyes, Ben's hair, Ben's skin, Ben eye, then we have my background color, then we have that is the color of Brent's gun and I can add up whatever, the ejector and handle. Then what is this? Just random accidental saves. So what I'll do, since I'm gonna keep this easy, I'm gonna use Mike's skin. Go to the paint bucket. Make sure you have all layers and contiguous selected, because if you didn't have contiguous, basically everything white would turn to the color that I'd use. And if I didn't do all layers, and everything will be filled, since I'm not working on the layer with the line art. So with those two selected, if for whatever reason you decide to use alias images or alias lines, the tolerance thing can save you, because you can set the tolerance to like 3 or 4, meaning that 3 or 4 shades of darker than white or whatever color you're filling will also be filled in with your paint bucket color. So that can save you if you use it right. So now let's go into coloring. So everything with that we want for the skin, just fill in. And see how the entire thing got filled? That means there's a gap somewhere. So we take that off. And always with my luck, it's a really small gap, and those are really annoying to find sometimes. Yep, there it is, right there. I've been doing this a lot, so I can spot them fairly quickly. Now you have two options to fix this hole. Either you can go back up to the main layer and just fill that in, or depending if you like the style of not always having lines, fill it on this layer. And since you have contiguous and all layers set, it'll still fill. You have no idea how long it took me to figure that out. Let's see if this one does it. Nope. Oh yeah, that's a big one. Can't believe I missed that one. This one I'm actually going to go to the top layer and do it, since there's a big gap. If you remember back in my archive, there's a chapter where I didn't use outlines, which is a really annoying chapter to skin with, since I don't know, I could probably do better now, but then it was giving me a really hard time. Let's use Lewis's hair for that. And And the way to get around not using the lines is to make there to be high contrast when you're shading. If you're interested in someone who does it very well, I'd recommend going to Macall, which is MACHALL.com. It's a webcomic that is unfortunately no longer updating since the artist kind of got, I don't know, tired of having the rigorous update schedule for or something. No, not even rigorous update schedule. I'm just talking out of my ass now. For whatever reason, he stopped, and he was one of my favorite webcomics, and he's also one of the reasons why I started my own. So, Ian, if you were ever, for whatever reason, watching this, kudos, man. I owe you a lot. So now I am just filling in a little bit of the details. Seeing the eye is not really working right, but don't worry, I'm going to fix that later. So then for the scar tissue right there, give it a somewhat more pale look. I don't know, it'll look cool. See, another option I could have done is to remove the scar line, so it's just an implied outline, and then when I shade this, give the area a lot more contrast so it sticks out a lot more, sort of like the Hardigan eye or Hardigan scar from Sin City. So that's what we were kind of working with, and I'm going to wear a gray shirt. And since I don't want to have the biohazard symbol be completely black and thus make it really hard to shade, I'm going to it's still too dark. Give it a darker color. Or I think I might just do it red. Red is actually a surprisingly hard color to work with, or at least when I try to use it, since the methods that I use to shade and highlight tend not to work well with red, and shall demonstrate that to you later. Gonna give him let's give him some of these. No, it's too light. Yeah, don't like that. I think we'll give him some brown pants. Makes his boxers blue. And you see me using this little guy here. This is your eyedropper tool. I probably should have thought more about what I'm going to be using earlier on, so I wouldn't be losing everybody. Basically, you know, so once you click that, you click on a color, it will put that into your little palette thing right there. So using that color, you can use that color, basically anything that you want. You're also going to open up another file and use the eyedropper to get a color from a different picture, which is actually very invaluable for Vendetta. It's the only reason why there's color continuity throughout pretty much the entire comic. There are a couple instances where I used the wrong skin color, but considering what characters it was, it's actually pretty hard to tell. Because the only reason why I got messed up was because when I first started working on the laptop, I had to import the swatches which I have over here, and like a couple of them got I don't know, lost or corrupted on the way. So then I had to re-pick them out, and I picked out the wrong color, and yeah, everything got messed up for a little while until I realized what was going on. So now we have our basic thing going on, and yeah, so that's what I work with. If you want to throw in your like a quick background color right now, it'll, I don't know, inspire you. You can just, let's say you want to have it be this color here for whatever reason. Deselect all layers for your paint bucket tools. And go gata. There. Now he's doing something in front of a dark surface. Yeah. Also, what you'll notice is, if you, I'm not sure if you can tell in the video, but when you are zoomed out, when you have an alias line, like it seems like you're using an anti-alias line, which actually gets to be pretty annoying. So having a dark surface behind it will make it seem like it's aliased and all filled in correctly. Another option that you can do, it's what I did earlier on, is go to your line art layer, right click, I think it's Command on a Mac, and you duplicate the layer, hit OK, and then you go to your little menu thingy right here and select it to multiply, and that will solve your problem of having there look like there's an alias line, anti-alias line going around your line art. As you can tell the difference if I'm doing that. Whatever. Go back here. I like my way of background. So now I'll show you how to do the shading real quick. So you will want to make a new layer on top of your base colors. Then here's what's the part that's really open to what the look that you're going for. You go over to the opacity and you can change it to, or if you just click on opacity and you click and drag, you can change it from 0 to 100%. 100% is full color. Here, I'll demonstrate on the base color. So this is currently at 100% opacity, and that's at 30% opacity, and so on and so forth. It changes how much of it you can see through. And so this one, I'm going to change the opacity down to 40%, or as close as I can get with the pen tablet. And I'm going to keep this one the same. All the options, I'm going to keep it normal. And I'm going to create one more on top of that. And so this one, the layer 4 here, will be my shading layer, the one that's 40%. Layer 5 will be my highlight layer, and since I'm going to want it to be very highlighty, I'm going to keep it at about 50%. And then go to the menu here and select linear dodge. So now I'm going to go into shirt. Now I'm going to take the magic wand tool up here and then make sure all layers are selected. Click, and it'll select all the gray that it touches without being broken up by another line or something like that. And since there's still areas in here not being touched, click on this little tool right there, and it'll add some more, or let me add more to the selection. If you have access to a keyboard, if you click and hold Shift while you have the magic wand selected, it'll automatically do that option. And just like that, if you hit, I believe it is, yeah, if you hit the Alt key, it'll do the negative select. So that means everything that you click now will be deselected. And then with the tolerance, it's the same thing, and that should be 0. But since I'm not using anti-alias lines, I don't have to worry about it. And what you're about to see here is this is my little on-screen thing, and it slows everything down. Okay, now we get to the shading. Um, I use black for the shading. For everything except for the skin. Skin I use a brown color, mainly this one right here, whichever, yeah, dark warm brown. It works. So, and for the highlights, I select the color of the object I am working with. So with the shirt, I select the gray. You'll see why. So now I go with the pencil tool and start shading. One of the reasons why I don't use a mouse, or not anymore, is the fact that I'm left-handed, and so I've only ever been comfortable using a mouse with my right hand, and I can't draw for squat with my right hand. So that's why all the shading for the earlier chapters, or at least the first chapter and a little bit, I think, the second chapter, basically until I got my first pen tablet, I had to do everything uh, with my right hand in terms of shading, and it really looked like crap. Um, so ever since I got the tablet, all my shading got to be a lot more fluid looking. And one thing that you should also be aware of is I don't follow the rules in terms of shading. And by rules I mean the laws of physics. I'll put light where I feel it should be rather than where it should be. I don't highlight things that should be highlighted. If you notice, this is not quite a spoiler, but a bit of information that is just kind of handy to know when you're reading my comic. Is the sunglasses that pretty much everyone wears don't reflect light. It gives it sort of a weird, dark, and ominous feel to the character that is wearing it. At least that's my intention. I don't know if it actually works on anyone other than myself. Um, yeah. You see, I'm just kind of messing around with the shadows. I kind of just let loose on the shadow, like the shading. I have the most fun doing this portion of the comic or of any art because this is where the image starts to look good, in my opinion. Because I've never been fond of my own line art. The final product always looks a hell of a lot better than the process. So we shall see how this one turns out. I just realized that I didn't change my background back to white, even though I wanted it to. Oh well, not that it really matters. Okay, so as you can see, I haven't filled anything in yet. And that's just because I don't want to work myself into a corner and like not shade something that I should have shaded or did it, or whatever. Also because I'm lazy, because it would require me having to put my hand all the way over here, back to the paint bucket, and then all the way over to all layers, and then click once or twice or whatever. So here we are to the detailed part of the work. We try to get into all the areas that you shaded at. This is where the computer starts to slow down once you get a lot of stuff going. Alright, so there we have the basic shading on the shirt. Nothing special. So let's add the highlights. Now, if you notice early on in the comic, there are no highlights. Any highlight is based. I forgot to change my color. See, there we go. Now we get the highlights. Now the reasons why I use the color of the shirt is because that looks the most natural when it comes to highlighting with the linear dodge. know I was saying something earlier, but I can't remember what it was. And when I listen to this to check all the audio and everything, I'm gonna go pissed because I realize, oh, damn it, I didn't talk about that. Usually I zoom in a little bit more to make the highlights and shading a little more, I don't know, fine-tuned, but since I'm sort of working against the clock here, as well as the space on my hard drive was video, I'm going by quick. Oops. So one thing that people sort of accuse me of doing is, like, especially when it comes to some of the art, namely for the capes and like where they're kind of going all over the place, is that I'm copying Spawn. Believe it or not, I've only read one Spawn comic in my entire life, and that was when I was really little. So I wouldn't really say it influences my art all that much. If you notice, like, when the comic first started, it was very anime-ish, and it's sort of slowly been pushing away from that, and it's a lot more Western looking now than it did when it first started. So, yeah. Now let's take a look at how it looks. Take a look at how it looks. God, I can't talk. Alright, so now we have basic, that looks pretty decent, but doesn't have any sort of kick to it. So, at least in terms of shading and highlighting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a layer. Well, first I want to go back to my selection. Then, so you add a layer, pull this down to 60%, keep it normal, take black, go into my brush tool, make it kind of big. Let's keep it 65, too small. 100 should work. And then just give accent dark spots. Makes the highlights really stand out and gives everything sort of mass, sort of like a momentum feel. So yeah, don't be afraid to shade over highlights. Can make things look pretty decent or whatnot. Or, just do it just cause, like I do. It's definitely, some artists go a lot by what looks right. I definitely go a lot by what feels right. If I feel there should be a shadow there, I put a shadow there. If I feel that there should be a highlight, I put a highlight. If I feel it should glow, I make it glow. So I don't know, there's probably someone watching this and going, dude, there's a lot easier way of doing that. Or, God, this guy's a freaking moron. Trying not to swear for the underagers or little kids watching this for whatever reason. They're watching this. I mean, it's a lot better than some of the crap they put on TV. Stupid reality TV shows. Alright, so now that's a little bit better. Not quite happy with it, but whatever. I'm going to be doing more stuff to it later. I think I'll deal with the red now. Hate dealing with this color. So let's actually I'll make this easy to go contiguous. Oh man, it's taking a long time. So now the trick with highlighting red, especially highlighting red, you choose, instead of using the same color for the using the linear dodge method, you want to use a color that's a lot lighter than the red. So see, that one works as opposed to an actual red, where she's only barely noticeable. So now what you can do is follow your old lines of your highlighting, or you can actually make your own new ones if you want to particularly accent the object, or whatever that you wanted to do with it. Oops, wrong way. Oh, the glorious undo button. I'd be lost without it. Oops. Keep in mind I'm doing this a lot faster than I normally would, so there's going to be a little more errors than I usually have. I'm not saying that I don't make errors, it's just usually I catch them right before I do them. Enter the awkward silence as I do tedious work. Alright, so, oops, now I gotta do the heavy shade. Realize I missed a spot. So now it's looking a little better. But don't worry, I am not nearly done with this thing yet. And this is definitely kind of what I was talking about when things get over detailed, kind of takes away from the entire picture. If the whole image was filled with things like this, it would be really hard to see what's up. But since this is a sort of demo and it's basically I'm only working on the figure, whatever. I mean, this is more to get the technique or just ideas on how to do your own stuff, more than me telling you this is the only way to do it, because by no means am I getting this right. For the aspiring artists out there, I definitely recommend checking out other people's works and kind of trying to figure out how they do them, because from their process you come up with your own. When I first started, I used the Mac-Hall method, which gave me the basics until I sort of started to forge my own path on how I did the art, which now I've found it's not the most original way of doing it, but it gets the job done in the manner in which I need it. what I'll probably end up doing is uploading the line art to my website, and then having people try to like coloring it, just cause give people practice material. Because that's one thing that's actually kind of hard to find, at least for me. Finding material that is like practice material that is really practicable, because a lot of people will just post their line art and say, hey, you can color this if you want, and with no consideration to who is going to be coloring it. So that means they would fill a image with artifacts and anything else that can make it a pain in the ass to color. Um, People like the Apple Geeks boys. Uh, they upload. I believe they still have them, anyways. They have a lot of uh, line art images that you can use to practice on. Um, so if you don't want to use my image, I definitely recommend using theirs, since Hawk is, I feel, is a lot better artist than I am, since he can do killer line art and my line art is just really, mediocre at best. Of course, that's, every artist thinks they're horrible, and then any artist that thinks they're awesome, or it's actually horrible. It's kind of weird like that, unless they're the kind of artist that pretty much no one likes, where they are so egocentric, like, oh, my art is so good, and their art is good, but you don't like hanging around them because they kind of make it a point to rub it in your face on how good of an artist they are. Fortunately, those guys are few and far between, so you don't have to deal with them all that much. Now here's some advice for anybody that is wanting to start a webcomic, since I've been on the web for 4 years and barely anyone knows me. Um, if you are going to start a webcomic, do not, under any circumstance, assume that you're going to become famous. The Mac Halls of the world, the Apple Geeks, the uh, just so you know, I'm now using the brown since I'm going to be shading the skin. So the Mac Halls, the Apple Geeks, the Mega Tokyos, the VG Cats, those are one in like a million, because there are a lot of webcomics out there, and there are a lot of really good ones, as well as there's a lot of really bad ones. So if you're going to be doing a webcomic, yeah, do not, under any circumstance, once again, do not assume that you are going to become famous. And you can do a comic for one of two reasons. You can do a comic for yourself. You can do a comic to please others. It is much harder to do the comic that pleases others because you can't please everybody. I'm gonna come back to that one. So instead of that, just do it for yourself. If you enjoy doing a comic, you'll do the comic, whether or not you have a lot of readership or not. Like me, I have been averaging about 200 readers for the last 3 years or so. I've only really advertised once, and that was 3 years ago, which got me my readership of 200. And I recently did another one-day advertisement on the Buzz Comics site, or buzzcomics.net, buzzcomics.net. It's one of those top 100 or top webcomic lists. And boost my readership just a bit. But since I have a story-based comic, it is actually pretty intimidating to have to face a 400-page or more than 400-page archive to get to understand what the hell is going on, or at least as much as anyone that is reading it will understand, since I do make the story kind of complex and hard to follow sometimes. I do understand that, and it's on purpose because I like making you guys suffer. Not really, but it's all for the story. So yeah, if you have a story-based comic, it is actually a lot harder to gain readership than it is to have a humorous one. However, humor comics do not sell very well, as at least by comparison to in the real world to oh shit, did I bust that up? Yes, I did. All right. Serious comics sell a lot better in the real world than humor comics. All right. Um, but online, the humor comics dominate the story comics, which is kind of backwards, but whatever. Okay. So here we have a instance where I messed up. I did the shading on the arm on layer 6 along with my heavy darks, leaving the actual layer I should have been working on clean. Check something down here and see if it worked down here too. No, so that's fine. So what I'm going to do to fix this little problem, go on to the layer I wish I had done it on, make sure all this is set, and just go tap, then come up to here to layer 6, clear that, problem solved. Now I think I just did something I didn't want to do. Yeah, I just did that. So, going to take my little marquee tool, use the deselect that since I'm done with it. So now when I clear layer 6, or at least what's selected, that remains the same. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. So now I'm going to highlight that. So yeah, if you do want to become successful in webcomics, you have to understand the audience that you're targeting. So if you are the best comics tend to be the video game comics, unless you are really good with art and humor, like the Mac Hall boys were. Um, and they had some video game content, but yeah, the video game comics tend to do the best. Then sort of slice of life ones, kind of like real life comics, which is at reallifecomics.com. And of course, there's a lot more since I'm not extremely savvy with webcomics. I know a small group. Um, Probably the largest webcomic is a video game comic called Penny Arcade, which is penny-arcade.com. And they're basically the fathers of webcomics. They've been around I think since '98. Anyways, they've been around for basically longer than anyone, and they're bigger than anyone. So if you've never heard of webcomic, chances are you still probably have heard of Penny Arcade. They actually have a convention called PAX, and so a Penny Arcade Expo, which is I wish I remember when it was being held, but if you go on their website, you can find out all the information on it. And they can be very brutal in their humor, which is good because there's not enough of that. At least not enough that's well done. Alright, so let's see how this is turning out. Damn it. Alright, so this is how it looks so far. So far so good, sort of. Do this arm. So once again, the best way to consider yourself to be successful in a webcomic is the fact that you're actually doing one and happy with doing it, because success and is varies from person to person. Personally, I find myself successful mainly because I have an archive of currently 200, I don't know, 422, a lot. Most, as far as I have seen, most webcomics kind of quit around 200 or something like that. Mac Hall ended at 380, 380 something, and it was a really weird feeling knowing that I kind of surpassed the webcomic that got me started, or one of the webcomics that got me started. The one that I really have to give credit for being the 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 starting force that got me to work on my comic is RPG World, which is at, I think it's rpgworldcomic.com. He hasn't updated in over a year now, which is really sad because he's so close to finishing it. Um, he has, I think, 500 pages or close to it. Basically, he's sort of my next hurdle. I don't really consider Mega Tokyo to, you know, sort of be a threat, since Mega Tokyo is like a hell of a lot more popular than my comic probably will ever be. And don't even bother comparing myself to Penny Arcade, just because it's Penny Arcade, no point. But in terms of story comics, it's definitely Mega Tokyo is my sort of quote unquote greatest rival, even though I don't really have rivals. I don't really care enough to. Um, there's no point in sort of having a rival against someone over the internet. It's the internet. It's real serious business. Yeah, right. Um, Alright, so now since I'm going to be doing the face, I'm going to sort of trick the shading into doing what I want to do, since I want to definitely hide that left eye. Of course, it's not like tricking, it's more of just messing around with what I'm doing to make it do what I want it to. Basically, I'm gonna have a lot of contrast on the left side of the face, so this area over here is gonna be a lot brighter than this area. I'm gonna just do a heavy shade on this side of the face to hide the eye, since I don't like that eye. Sort of way to do that is to do a lot of detail on one side for highlights, and then just basically do none for the other side. And then just darken everything, and voila, you have your heavy shadow. You can tell I haven't done anything to the eye yet, which will be the main deciding factor, since I'm still working with brown. Whoops, gotta redo that. So I'm working with brown. Brown doesn't really, cover things up like black does. So I'm gonna be coming back later with black, and I'm gonna be applying a general black shadow to pretty much everything, or everything that I want to be dark. So let's see, zoom in. My method of shading generally goes from shirt to pants to skin to eyes and mouth to hair. I don't know why, but Usually the hair lasts for whatever reason. And with the eyes, I don't do highlights on the whites. Since they're white, I can't really highlight them unless I do a glow effect, which works on a couple of occasions, but not this one. Actually, it might work over here, but we'll see. So now highlighting not the iris, yeah, it is the iris. And here I used to say new eye anatomy. So darken that up. Of course, for the scar. So as you probably can see, is what I do in my comic is actually very easy. It's just sort of time consuming. So now we get to do the hair, and then we'll be done with the initial shading and highlighting. Oops. Now the hair, it's still easy. Same exact process as before. Just the only thing you have to consider is where the light's going to be coming from. Because the hair doesn't really look right, the whole thing doesn't really look right. I can't really explain why. Probably because, it doesn't look right. Yeah. So, once again, keep in mind that this is only one of the ways I've done things. It's pretty much the current state of the way I do art, with the exception of the fact that this chapter is completely black and white. So, this was basically representative of chapter 10, and the manner in which I did that chapter. Whoops, forgot to do the heavy shadows. See, I'm not really worried about anyone stealing my secrets because they're not really secrets, and I don't really feel that artists should deny people who are wanting to learn how to do that art, that kind of style of art, the knowledge and power to do it. Just because you as an artist will always be you, and if anyone tries to be you, it won't be you. So why do you care? And I've had people try to copy my art. I mean, in the respect of the style which I color, and it's actually kind of cool. I mean, you see it and you're like, oh wow, I can see where they pulled that from. That's not what I would have done, but hey, it's cool that you did it. Which is one of the reasons why I'm going to be probably posting the line art online. Okay, so now we have the finished shading and highlighting. You can tell, it's kind of pretty dynamic looking, but it's still not there yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first hide all these layers. Then go to my colors here and select basically everything because I'm going to add a general shadow. Now my computer's really starting to slow down. It's like, no, please stop. So as you can tell, a simple picture like this is taking me it's probably gonna take me about 2 hours total to do. So I'm probably gonna have having to cut the video down into portions so I can upload it to like YouTube or something and not have to worry about killing their server. Oops. One thing I could have done, I probably should have, is select everything else and select inverse, which is definitely what I should have done because that would have been a lot easier than going to select everything. Um, if anyone's there interested in podcasts, there's a podcast called Photoshop Killer Tips, and I recently have subscribed to that and found that it is very useful. There's a lot of little tricks I would not have thought of that they tell you how to do. So, yeah. Okay, now this one, since it's going to be a general shadow, I'm going to keep it about 50%. I mean, it's going to make everything like really dark. So, make this bigger. Just makes it dark. Makes the light stuff stand out even more. So now we got that dark thing. And what I'm going to do now is something I picked up from from a Penny Arcade how-to. Is make a new layer, fill it black, change the mode to screen. So now it's see-through, but if you look down here, it's still black. It's still black. And then you take a color that you want the light to be, and you give it the super highlights. However, I forgot about that. But in my opinion, that is a little too bright. So what I'm going to do is change the opacity of the brush down to 60% opacity, or 59 or whatever, and 30% flow. So I'm going to use the same color. Just go over it a couple times, gives the glow a little more umph in some areas. The areas I want to be affected by it a little bit more. So like right there. See, originally what I would do in this for the exterior glow of the figure is probably paint something down with the either the paintbrush or the pencil tool, and then change the layer properties or the blending options of the layer to external glow and internal glow, and just fiddle with everything until it looks right. The only problem is you don't have a whole lot of control with that. I mean, if you know what you're doing, you can make it look like what you want, but for precision, it's again, you have to know what you're doing to make it look the way you want it to. So here's what's gonna really make the eye I don't like disappear. Give the skin a good glow. And I think I am going to add a little bit of glow to the iris. So I'm going to make this So a lot of what I do is just messing around to get it to do what I want it to, as I've said many, many times now. I'm going to do for the biohazard symbol, since I want that to stick out a little bit more, going to use, hopefully this color will work. Since it's red, I never can tell. Give it a little, like it's a metallic decal or something on the shirt. It looks alright. And if in doubt, if you think it's too bright, you can take your eraser tool, set it to brush, lower the opacity, base it to that. Just kind of either erase at it, or you can take the black, which will do the same exact thing, and just go over it like you would if it was an eraser. Since your background is black, it'll take away the edge off of everything, and so turn it to the black background and stuff. Yeah. Alright, so we back this up. And since he looks pretty cool like that, I think I'm going to leave him alone now and concentrate on the background. And just turn this black, see how that looks, because I think it'll look pretty cool. Alright, yeah, so he's a figure over black, and I'm going to give him some cool light effect. Change the color. Actually, that. See, when you throw something really bright in the background that can make the highlights work, it really gives it a good, I don't know, touch. You just can add different little beams of light of different thicknesses. You can even go above everything and sort of give it like a feeling that he's actually, there. And then what you can do is lower the opacity. And one thing that you can do is apply a nice nifty shadow. Now I'm just messing around with things. I have no idea if this is going to work the way I think it's going to. Oops. Alright, so it starts from here. Oops. Did not want to do that. So I think I'm going to start over here this time. What's going on? I hate when it does that. Let's do this one more time. You can tell I'm not being very precise with this because, damn it. Okay, I'm just going to wing it. So I'm going to use my brush tool, keep that at that opacity, use black, and I'm going to make my shadows the way I want them to. I want this to be 300. That looks alright. Doesn't look fantastic, but basically, I think everything from. And since this isn't for my comic, I can crop things out and have them appear like I did on purpose. Like this, for example. I think I'm going to. Uh, I'm actually going to throw something in the background just because the pitch black doesn't really do much for me, at least right now. So I'm going to take my new layer, and if it'll let me move it all the way down here above layer 2, take a dark gray color, and start messing around until I get some shapes that I'll enjoy having back there. So you have really volumetric light like this, where you actually can see all the beams and whatnot. I think that's really effective if you give it into a sort of pseudo-religious feel to it. So like put it in a church, or put it into a temple, or so the dragon's lair. Something big and bad, or something supposedly holy, or yeah, I'm just rambling now. Eh, you know, whatever, it didn't work. But it gave me an idea for something else. One thing that you can always find yourself doing is, if you do a mistake, it can give you an idea for something cool. So I'm going to fill this layer with black. Oops. Make it screen. And give some back highlights. Let's use that again. Since it's the background, you don't want it to outdo the front. So what you can do is just lower the opacity of it. And let's keep it at 30% or so, and then lower this to 30% or so. It looks like crap. I tried. So I'm just going to erase that and keep it at straight black. Yeah, that'll work. So, there we have it. We have our image. Now, it is important to, as an artist, to always sign your work. So, if someone's going to steal it, you have to go through the extra effort of erasing your signature, which is kind of amusing. So, I'll use my red color, since that's what I generally sign things with. Everything back up to 100%. Top layer. Hopefully it'll let me do it while this is going. So there we go. So now you have had a very brief, or not quite brief, look at how I do a image. In the comic there would be the background, and as well as elements of the speech bubbles, but that will be something I'll cover at some other time, and don't worry, I'd make it a lot shorter, since it's actually a very quick process to make speech bubbles. But I think that anyone watching this is probably fed up with my voice by now, and I just realized I want to add one thing because it's annoying me. And so yeah, try things new. Like something crosses your mind, like, hey, I think that'd be really cool if I did it this way. Trying something new in terms of doing a comic can never hurt it. My only recommendation is if you're gonna try something new, try it on a new chapter or try it on a test image first. Don't jump right into a new style because you never know if it's gonna work out. If it doesn't work out, you can be stuck with it, and Lord knows I've been stuck with styles too, and that I didn't like. So yeah, thank you again for watching this all the way through. If you want to check out my comic, once again, it is at vendettacomic.com, VENDETTA comic.com. I update currently twice a week on the new comics are uploaded for sure on Thursdays and Saturdays, if not a little bit before that. Uh, yeah, thank you for watching.